Hi, my name is Dave. Yesterday I was at Bad's and we were doing a video on our new seat for our new boat, Easy Street. And we ran into a problem where we had a little snag in there and we had a system fault and we had a delay. So I'm trying to pick up from where we left off yesterday to where we started yesterday, fill that gap in. So part of that just had to do with finishing mounting the platform. If you watch the video, the first one is 1 minute. At the end of that, we had the platform mounted on the boat and we're just getting ready to put the seat on when it stopped. So the part about putting the seat on and putting the chair on was not particularly important. What I wanted to tell you about was the difference between the chair on Toshi and this chair. When I first got this chair, this thing just swung nicely back and forth like this. And that worked fine for a while until we saw a problem with that. I'm going to show you that problem later on. The solution to that at that time was to put a pin in the back of the chair. You probably all remember that pin stopped the seat from moving. If you wanted to move the seat, you had to pull the pin out, move this over 7 or 8 degrees, put the pin back in, keep doing that to get the position you wanted. It's very difficult to pull a pin out because when the weight is on there, it puts a lot of friction. So I had these long handles out there that gave more friction to pull that pin back. But it's still a bit of a nuisance. So I thought I could do better than that on my new design. So in the new design, you'll see in the back there's a handle like this that screws into a hole here. In between here is a little housing and has a spring in it and a plunger. So this handle, when you tighten it, it puts more friction between these two pieces. So it avoids this thing swinging wildly back and forth. So that's the purpose of this handle, is to tighten that and reduce this friction. And I'm going to show you now what that friction does for you. So I clamp this onto the bench here. And my wife gets nervous when I do this, but she's a photographer today, so she can't get nervous. Okay, so I put that's how it was set when it's on the boat. And then to get up in this seat, this is the part that makes my wife nervous, and I sit back here. So everything's fine as long as I'm sitting straight up and down. The pivot's right here, my center of gravity's right here, and the center of the gravity is down there in the center of the earth. So everything's fine, everything's in alignment. If I tip a little bit, you can see what happens. And the more I tip, the farther it goes. So we had Kathy out there one time before I did any of this stuff, and she started to tip, and she fell almost all the way over. And fortunately, Josh and I were there. We were alert because we hadn't had our usual half bottle of wine that early, so we were able to catch her so she didn't fall all the way over. So I realized I had to do something different. So that's why this thing can't just sit here and swing back and forth, because if I tip over, there's a stop, so it only could go 30 degrees. So the most you're going to be, if that happens to you, you're going to be over like this. You're not going to fall out the way Kathy would have. So let me show you a little bit about, explain a little bit about how that works. I can't do it when I'm sitting in there. The trick with that friction is to put enough friction on it so that when the person's sitting steady there, the chair does not tip over. So at that point, the chair will move back and forth as the boat heels. And presumably there's going to be enough extra force in the boat heels to overcome that friction. And I'm not totally sure how that's going to work. It depends a little bit on how much friction you have back there. So you need enough friction by tightening that knob, this knob on the back of the chair, so it doesn't swing wildly back and forth, but not so much friction that it doesn't swing at all. Because when Chris was out there a while back, this was tightened and the chair didn't swing at all. And nobody knew about that chair there, that friction there. Is why we're doing this demo, so you'll all understand that. So that's the trick, is to adjust this knob back here so it works just right. The other thing that you're probably going to notice, I'll just explain this briefly, is that one of the differences between this chair and the chair on Toshi, I think you can see this right here, is this piece sags a great deal. This piece sags almost a ½ inch when we put your weight on it. And I was concerned about that, so I put a piece under here, and you'll see that on the chair. And the way that works is there's a bearing in front here that's in contact with that piece. Now obviously as it swings over here, that bearing no longer comes in contact. So there's another bearing out here that picks it up at that point. So it's always in contact. See, this is it there. but it picks up the middle, and so it's always in contact with a bearing. Well, that didn't work out very well because it's very hard to make the thing such that the radius of those three bearings is exactly the same as this radius. So the solution to that, which I'm probably going to do, is to make a piece like this that's always in contact with this bearing. So I don't have these other two bearings, so it'll swing and out. This doesn't work here because this is a different chair. So this piece will always swing and be in contact with that middle bit. So it'll be nice, smooth, moving back and forth. What you're going to notice, the way it is now, when there's an interference between that piece and the bearing, you're going to notice a little hiccup there, or a little jump in the way it goes back and forth across there. You may find that you have to give a little push to get by that little divot there. Depends on how much momentum you have going. If it stalls at that point, then all you have to do is give it a little push. So, and you might also find the same thing out with the friction, that when the boat starts to heel and the chair starts to pivot, it has to get enough force to overcome that friction. And you may find that towards the end of that travel, it won't go quite as far as you'd like it to because of that existing friction. So then somebody has to give it a little push to get it past that point. Now, of course, the chair before had to be constantly tenned with a pin back there. Now, I think all you have to do is every now and then, if it stops, you just give it a little push. And we'll just have to see how that works when we're out there. So that's basic piece that was yesterday at the start of the new video. I was sitting in a chair explaining the end of this little friction thing here. So now you've got the thing from the start to the end. The rest of the video is about 10 minutes, and that talks about various other aspects of the program. So we'll send that out, and hopefully you'll all be caught up with the new chair.